Okay, have you ever looked at a history textbook and thought, I feel like we're missing a few crucial chapters here? What if buried artifacts, I'm talking reports of giant skeletons or bizarre ancient tablets pulled straight out of muddy lake beds, actually shatter our completely accepted timeline of human development? Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating source that frankly challenges pretty much everything we thought we knew about our ancient ancestors. Now, the source material we're looking at today presents a really provocative premise. It basically asks, is our accepted human timeline actually just a carefully curated fiction? The overarching claim here is that modern institutions actively hide, or at the very least, heavily marginalize physical relics. Why? Well, to protect the established textbooks. The argument is that instead of rewriting the curriculum, the gatekeepers just box up the anomalies. So let's unpack these global mysteries category by category to see exactly what this source is arguing. We're going to navigate through 5 key areas: shattering the timeline, pre-Sumerian writing, advanced anomalies, evidence of ancient contact, and finally, academic suppression. Let's jump right in.
Starting off with Section 1, shattering the timeline through out-of-place artifacts. Our source establishes this massive friction between standard academic narratives and a handful of highly specific anomalous items. These are physical realities that literally refuse to fit neatly into our established historical maps. Which brings us to Section 2, pre-Sumerian writing. Now, we're all taught that complex society kind of kicked off in the Middle East, right? But the artifacts the source highlights here tell a remarkably different story. Look at the mainstream timeline. It places the emergence of writing with Sumerian cuneiform right around 3100 BC. But the source argues that this accepted map is directly challenged by some really remarkable discoveries in Greece and Romania, discoveries that supposedly predate the Sumerian script by thousands of years. The really interesting thing here is the hard radiocarbon data, which places these complex European scripts completely outside the allowed historical window. For example, we've got the Dispilio tablet. That's a cedar block pulled from Lake Castoria in Greece with over 50 distinct characters, definitively dated to 5200 BC. And then there are the Tartaria tablets from Romania, found in a complex shaman burial dating back to 5500 BC. The math just doesn't add up for the mainstream timeline. So you might be wondering, how did the academic world react to this? Well, according to the source, mainstream academia flat out refuses to acknowledge them. The Tartaria tablets dismissed as intrusive burials, meaning they claim someone supposedly dug a hole much later just to bury them. Or they just label them as random decorative scratches. And the Dispilio tablet was reportedly locked unstudied in a university drawer for over a decade. They used technical conservation issues as a convenient shield to just avoid dealing with the timeline anomaly altogether. All right, moving to Section 3, advanced anomalies. Because think about it. If isolated European farmers were writing thousands of years early, what happens when entire massive empires completely defy the historical record and just suddenly emerge from the dirt? 4 meters. That's nearly 13 feet. That is the astonishing height of this absolutely flawless geometric bronze tree pulled straight from the mud in Sangxingdu, China. The sheer scale and the thinness of this bronze cast, which is covered in these delicate birds and dragons, modern foundries with computer-aided design still struggle to replicate something like this, let alone a supposedly isolated culture from the 12th century BC. And the source details how both the Sansing-Dui culture and the North American mound builders possessed staggering scale and bizarre biological anomalies that just completely threaten single-origin theories. Sansing-Dui featured these towering bronze masks with non-local lead isotopes, which implies a vast global trade network, yet strangely they left 0 human remains. Meanwhile, early excavations in North America unearthed geometric pyramids and documented 7 to 8 foot tall skeletal remains with highly unusual anatomical features. We're talking things like double rows of teeth. So how do institutions maintain their authority when faced with this? Well, they allegedly took swift action. Our sources outline how entities like the early Smithsonian dispatched field agents across the American Midwest, specifically to pack these anomalous, giant skeletal remains into crates, load them onto freight trains, and poof. Once they hit the capital, they simply vanished from the public record, locked away in restricted museum storage under a total wall of bureaucratic silence. This perfectly sets up Section 4, ancient contact evidence. Let's explore the artifacts that strongly suggest a highly connected global civilization operating long before Christopher Columbus. This really challenges the ingrained idea that vast oceans were just impenetrable barriers to our ancestors.
The source puts a heavy focus on physical evidence that creates what we can call a geographical paradox. This is what happens when you find an ancient script or an engineered artifact literally thousands of miles away from its known origin point, completely defying any recognized ancient trade routes. And honestly, this illustrates the paradox perfectly. The source claims that local Amazonian tribes in Ecuador actually recovered thousands of massive golden plates from deep underground cave systems and gifted them to a missionary named Father Crespi. Now, these weren't primitive trinkets. We're talking heavy metal sheets featuring winged griffins and ancient Middle Eastern, specifically Sumerian text. Finding Mesopotamian writing deep in the Amazon is a geographical paradox that mainstream history just simply cannot accommodate. In another wild geographical paradox, we have the Las Lunas de Caligo stone. So the site is this 80-ton basalt boulder hidden away on a rugged mesa in the New Mexico desert. And the text carved right into it is a structured version of the Ten Commandments, written in a really complex blend of ancient Paleo-Hebrew and Greek. Naturally, the establishment immediately labeled it a modern fake, claiming it was carved by some 19th century prankster.
But the explainer argues that the hoax theory is just a convenient shield. Gatekeepers allegedly deliberately neglect the site and absolutely refuse to allow basic modern mineral patina weathering tests that could easily prove its true age in a lab. By leaving it totally unprotected and categorized as a fake, the stone is constantly defaced by vandals. Basically, they're effectively letting natural erosion solve a massive historical problem on their behalf.
Which leads us directly into Section 5, academic suppression. What happens when artifacts become a threat to textbooks? This is really the source material's overarching thesis regarding exactly how and why alternative human history gets systematically buried.
A prime example of this is the Ira Linde book. Discovered in the 1860s in the Netherlands, this ancient manuscript was written in Old Frisian using this bizarre six-spoked wheel alphabet. It details highly specific geological data, an advanced European matriarchal maritime empire, and even records the tectonic sinking of a landmass called Atlant in 2194 BC. Because it threatened the accepted idea that the Middle East was the cradle of civilization, academics simply bullied the document entirely out of the public eye.
So the crucial takeaway here is this observable playbook of institutional suppression. Step 1. Discredit the finder as a hoaxer or a crank. Step 2. Absolutely refuse modern chemical or dating tests on the physical artifacts. And step 3. Bury the artifact in restricted vaults. Whether we're talking about the Vatican, the Smithsonian, or a provincial library in the Netherlands, the source alleges a highly coordinated strategy to confiscate and hide paradigm-shifting physical data. It is much easier for them to ignore hard physical evidence than to rewrite generations of history textbooks. That quote directly from the source material perfectly captures the core tension of our entire analysis today. It's the central claim that modern academic institutions actively sanitize history to protect their own established foundations. They rely on a flawed textbook rather than admitting that an unknown superpower might have once thrived. And that leaves us with a truly profound question regarding the integrity of our historical archives. If the definitive proof of a connected ancient world is sitting in a private, restricted vault right now, what other chapters of the human story have they already erased? It definitely encourages us to look a lot more closely at the anomalies hidden just beneath the surface. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and as always, stay curious.